all over.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. So I expect to be peppered with deeply intense and personal questions that I've never been asked before.
We'll do our best. All right, so about those hard-hitting questions.
Yeah.
I watched many interviews with you from over the years, so I'm hoping that we're hoping to get a couple of different answers from you. So right away, at the start of the X-Files, you had shared that while filming that first episode you were in, you really weren't sure that you were going to continue with the show. So after having been on the show for 5 seasons, what was your overall experience after that initial, I'm not sure about this?
Oh, I completely changed tunes. What happened was I didn't know anything about the X-Files when I got the job. We had been filming Dragonheart in Europe for several months, and prior to being in Slovakia, I had spent the summer in Greece, and literally I knew nothing about the X-Files other than what my agents had told me. Oh, it's a good show, it's on TV, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then I had only been home for a few days, and I got this job, and I was flying to Vancouver, and we had that whole thing, the whole story about the hair and the haircut, and that whole thing kind of got smoothed over. And then when I'm going back to Vancouver for the second episode, I'm at the airport, and the gal checking me in says, hey, congratulations. I'm like, what? He goes, well, you won the Emmy. I said, right, with Emmy. She says, no, you're still the X-Files. I won Best Dramatic, Best TV Drama. I'm like, what? I'm on the best show on TV? Really? And then, coincidentally, David Duchovny and I sat next to each other on the flight to Vancouver. Because he had been, it was just the night before, he had been, I guess, on stage at the Emmys. And after that, I felt kind of stupid about making a big deal about the haircut. But if you remember the story of the haircut, I was up for 2 major feature films that needed longer hair. And so I was, very hesitant to do that. But then it turned out to be so much better of a job than the 2 films. It was something I looked forward to, not a little bit, but like, yes, I'm going back to Vancouver. I'm going to have more sushi. I'm going to see the same people again. And I know that we've talked about this before, but the sense of family that I got with X-Files, that you're going to have a reunion every year. You haven't been able to do that with any other show. It certainly doesn't happen with a feature film unless it becomes something like, I don't know, what's the Jason Bourne series?
No, and have you stayed friendly with anybody for crew or cast? Is that something that you have done over the years?
Coincidentally, I do have a friend from X-Files who was David Duchovny's stand-in at the time, and then he became a medic, Brett Bell.
Oh, cool.
And coincidentally, Brett Bell and I ended up living near each other, and we both love golfing, and we go to a municipal golf course near us. And Brett is now one of the SAG representatives. So in addition to seeing Brett socially, I do see him on sets now and then.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So, Nicholas Lee and I communicate, Mitch Pileggi a little less, because Nicholas and I sort of have that Northwest connection. Although he's a Canuck, I kind of consider him Northwestern America. We both have like second residences in the woods on the coasts. We swap photos of our little oases. Well, to add to that, David has been. I leave him alone because he's a dad. But we change emails once in a while and talk. There's year gaps in between, but I've really enjoyed staying in touch with David and getting his perspective. He's just a marvelous sense of humor. He's ridiculously smart. He was instrumental in getting me a part on Californication.
Yep.
And I know he's done that for a lot of people. So a big shout out to Mr. Duchovny. I hope you're doing well. And I miss you, buddy.
Brian, can you tell us how you prepared for your amazing badass role?
Preparation. It's the standard questions you ask about your character. Where's he from? What is he like? Where is he vulnerable? Is he, where does he fit in the power structure? In this role, he was, basically cyber something, cyber fill in the blank. And so emotions were gone. So so those normal questions you ask yourself, oh, well, he's more of a machine. Does he have some skeleton that's been, artificially terraformed, so to speak? It wouldn't be terraforming, that would be like dermaforming. Artificially grown epidermis. Is there a word for that? Epiform. He was a artificial skeleton that had been epiformed. So efficiency was the word that I latched onto. That this is a very efficient, straight to the point, get it done guy. And that was the and that's scary because we all have vulnerabilities, but if you recognize that you cannot penetrate this person, you're not going to scare him, because you wipe him out, another one just shows up in its place, and no fear of mortality, so that fear is off the table. So you are a bit automaton.
I like that. Cool. Well, you made it work.
Yeah. Terrifying.
Your character was so badass. It was always terrifying to watch, but at the same time, I loved it.
Yeah. Every time you'd appear on screen, I'd be like, oh no. I have to myself.
Who's going to hit the F?
Yeah, exactly.
I like your M&M cup too. That's good.
That's from the M&M store in Times Square. Is the thing even open anymore? I don't know.
I was there in January before the world stopped. We were there with my daughter who wanted to buy everything.
Yeah. Oh, the store is made to just terrorize parents if they take their kids in there. It's such a eyeful. It's such a. I want that.
Floor to ceiling.
Sugar rush.
Nice. So one of the interviews I was watching, you had mentioned that one of your favorite behind the scenes memories was when you were kind of stuck in the car filming with Gillian Anderson because it was so cold out and you just got to socialize with Gillian. And you said that was one of your favorite memories from behind the scenes. We're wondering what some of your other favorite memories were that we haven't heard about.
Behind the scenes. Well, immediately what comes to mind is something that I absolutely can't talk about.
Come on.
It was absolutely marvelous. It's a wonderful off-screen, on-set surprise. It's beautiful. One of my fondest memories. It's like supplanting everything else, so we can't talk about that. Off-screen, on-screen. Boy, that memory just blew up everything else. Let's see. There was a great amount of excitement when we went to the end of this season where we went off in the spaceship.
Yep.
When we drove into that location, it was up in the mountains, and it was out of Big Bear in west east of Los Angeles. And as we're driving through the woods, the amount of lights and activity just kept growing and growing and growing. And the set and the crew had become so big, it was like they were doing Patriot games. We're out there in the woods, and there is a city that has been set up.
Wow.
And, you know, just lights and cameras and trucks everywhere. And the scope of how it had grown was just invigorating, exciting. And I went to Chris Carter and I said, does this show have a budget anymore? And he said, yes, but we don't pay attention to it.
Do you have a favorite episode?
Absolutely. It was the first two, and the scene on the submarine with David, where the character got tied to the mythology of the show. When he asked about his sister, and you assumed that this character was telling the truth, and he did know that his sister was alive. Because of the scope of it, and to step on that set and see that giant submarine coming right in the middle of the floor of a soundstage, and then to have that, I would say that was the deepest involved scene, emotional for David, that scene with him on the submarine. That was my favorite. I would say a close second is where this character walked up, you know, and you realize that there was 8 bounty hunters, and David was in that chair. That was just a wonderfully scary scene.
Yeah, it was.
And personally, that was when I learned that there were several of us. I kind of assumed that might be possible, but now it was established as a fact. And personally, I knew I could never be, if I was ever written out of the show or destroyed, I'd just show up again.
Yeah.
So how often is an actor, oh, look, you're dead. Oh.
Can't get rid of me.
Yeah, you can't. He could always come back.
What was that? You know, what was that like as an actor to really, you represented the scariest character on the show, in the mythology of the show.
I have to say that hearing you say that now makes me realize you never realize I'm the biggest badass in the show, because there had been so many wonderful, scary villains. So I never had that thought. I was, again, back to efficiency. I was this guy who was doing his job, getting rid of the unauthorized alien on the planet. And so there wasn't any thought. I never had that thought.
Him again? Oh, no.
Yeah, but that was what was so cool about your character. You just never knew where you were going to pop up. But you know, to me.
And it added another layer of drama anytime you saw him, even if it was in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Which made me rather surprised that I didn't make it into any of the movies or the subsequent seasons, because even if all it was that the bounty hunter just showed up in a shadow and you saw that it was him, instantly that would add a layer to the scene. Is he going to pop up? Is he headed somewhere? Or is it just a red herring?
Everybody that we've talked to, why do you think that the X-Files is still relevant over 25 years later?
Easy question. Because Are We Alone in the Universe is tied in with God and religion and our existence. Are you guys still there?
Yeah.
Yes.
My screen just changed. Oh, no, there we are. Okay. So the answer to the question is easy. It's tied into the relevance of us as a species. Are we alone? There's been a lot more wonderful documents released from the Freedom of Information Act that give credence to so many of the storylines that Chris Carter dug out. You know, he was a little bit fearful of what he was writing about because of where some of the information came from. And now that it's been established as fact, you know, the Area 51 the documentary that was just released on Netflix about Bob Lazar. Have you guys watched that?
I haven't seen it, but I heard about it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Really?
Might have something to do with why the X-Files remains relevant. Can you just maybe finish that thought for us? Why you think the X-Files is still relevant over 25 years later?
Right. We were just discussing why X-Files is relevant. And we just mentioned Area 51 and Bob Lazar, and suddenly our internet connection went out. It just went away.
Mysterious.
I wonder. You know, if you just say Area 51, Area 51, is our internet connection going to, are we going to suddenly be?
It might.
With the Freedom of Information Act and all the documents that have come out, it's made X-Files even more relevant. I want to know more about exactly what's happening there. I watched the Bob Lazar documentary on Netflix, and if that guy's a liar, he's the absolute best liar that has ever walked the planet. Because he's not like these other people that talk about alien abductions or this or that. He's talking about places that exist, physical technology that wasn't public back then, that since has been made public. And that makes the relevance of what Chris Carter did and the storylines that he dug up. We call into question, Chris, where did you get some of that information? Chris? I mean, have you guys interviewed Chris Carter?
We're working on it.
Working on it. Well, if by chance I see him, I'll encourage him to do it.
He seems.
And then if he does do it, you've got to ask him where he got the information for his storylines.
Yeah, where's his inside info? He was way ahead of his time.
Who's your deep throat? Who did you meet in a parking lot at night?
It's true. I mean, somebody else we were talking to, I think it was Annabeth Gish, was saying everything now doesn't seem so crazy. It's so like all the conspiracies, you know that this is what the crap that's going on there. He wasn't crazy. For people who thought the show was, nuts, it was right on.
Have you guys read Lieutenant Corzo's book? He was a retired admiral, Air Force, Navy. They have admirals in the Air Force. I think it was Navy.
Yeah, the Air Force. I've read excerpts from it. Yes, it's terrifying. Well,
and I think Strom Thurmond wrote the preface in that book saying that Mr. Corzo is legitimate. He's one of the most reliable sources, accurate, lived his life, got, hundreds, if not thousands of people that vouch for his character. And he talks about having seen these things with his own eyes. I think if memory serves me correctly, because I haven't read that book in 20 years, but I think he said he saw a tank full of greyheads, alien, like the real, wow, those guys. Have you guys ever spotted deer at night with a flashlight?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Headlights.
Oh yeah.
They look just like alien greyheads from the head on, because I was out on my property in Oregon and I had a flashlight one night and I saw these big green eyes staring at me and my heart stopped.
Freak you out. Yeah.
And I realized, at night at a distance, when a deer is looking you straight in the face,
True.
It looks like those aliens.
Brian, if you could say something to the fans from the last 27 years, what would it be?
Message for the fans in 27 years. I wish I had prepared a call to action speech. Once more into the breach, dear fans. I encourage them to do your own research, look at the facts, look at these documents, and maybe our government will stop treating us like children and let us see what they have. Why are they adult enough to get to have this information, and Brian Thompson at age 62, reasonably educated, can't have that information? A source of national security? What's going to happen if I get to know? So let's encourage all our fans to keep looking for the slug line of the show. The truth is out there. Do your investigation. And I would just be so thrilled if we had proof of alien visitors. And you know, with the number of phones that are all cameras out there now, we've got 1 billion cameras on the universe, out in the universe. As the more years go by and we don't get some photographic evidence of this, then doesn't that kind of give us thoughts about the other direction, that we're not being visited by? Because we got these you know, everybody just can just whip out. It's our habit now. Something weird starts happening, we start videoing. But then the counter argument, the aliens have technology to change the photon stream so that they can instantly replicate their background.
True.
Could be.
Right?
They could also be like your character that can basically become like any other, look like any other human being. It could be among us. You never know.
It's possible.
It's possible.
As you said that, it makes me wonder if Chris Carter could be a Gene Roddenberry.
I think in his own way he is.
Well, if we can keep this going, you know, if there is a new generation of a new X-Files, because this is current, and there's all this factual information that we could base the new storylines on, and there's all this new technology. You know, we didn't have smartphones when we were doing the X-Files.
No.
And we didn't have high-speed internet, and we didn't have a man relanding rockets on a pad in Florida, or on a drone ship in the ocean. You know, it would take, you know, a new reboot with a new cast so that you could have a next gen, a Voyager version of the X-Files.
You could. Thinking about it.
You could do that. We had the X-Files, you could have the Y-Files followed by the Z-Files.
You could.
Right here first, the Y-Files.
You could. Love it.
Awesome.
Maybe we should mention that to Chris if we ever get him.
That would be so cool if we could interview him. Time will tell.
Time will tell. Well,
Because Gene Roddenberry, you know, he built into his shows, and it happened in some of the X-Files shows, which I loved, is the moral, that there's a moral to almost every episode.
Yeah.
And morals are timeless. So if we got the new boot of the X-Files to have every episode had a moral that was tied to truth that we do know and truth that we want to know, that, because morals stand the test of time.
True. Very true. Brian, we want to thank you so much for hanging out with us today. And,
You're welcome.
And taking the time to talk about the show.
And thank you guys for doing your research on these other interviews so I didn't have to answer the same questions again. Thank you.
I got to give Lauren the credit for that. She was all about the interviews and doing the backstory. So I'm going to give her full credit for that.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was great. I loved watching the interviews. So.
Good job.
We're so grateful for your character and your time. And we'll
Cool. And you guys go watch, you know, the latest production I got to be involved with.
Macbeth?
Macbeth.
Macbeth. Where's that?
You've heard of the Coen brothers, I suppose.
Yeah, you guys were filming in July, right? Weren't you one of the first people
working on
it?
Yes.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so Joel Coen and Fran McDormand produced Shakespeare's Macbeth.
That's so cool. I'm all over that. That sounds awesome.
And Denzel Washington's Macbeth. I've got 2 scenes with Denzel.
Oh, nice.
That's great.
Yeah. Talk about a thrill. Wow.
That sounds like so much fun.
Oh, we got a month of rehearsal.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, do it.
Check it out. All right, Brian.
Great talking to you. Hope I didn't sound too preachy.
Oh, no.
No,
After all, I am from the future.